More than 2,500 years ago, India was called Jambudvipa. It was divided into many kingdoms, and one of them is called Kapilavastu, which was located on the north bank of the Rapi River on the rim of the Himalayas. The ruler of this kingdom was King Suddhodana, and his queen was called Maya. For 20 years they had no children. And one night, the queen dreamed of a white elephant holding a white lotus flower in its trunk, entering her womb through her right side, and then she became pregnant. And according to the custom of Kapilavastu, the queen returned to her own home to give birth. Queen Maya arrived at a flower garden in Naldini Park on the 15th of June and stopped for a rest. But before long, while walking around under the solid trees, enjoying the beautiful scenery, she felt her birth pains, and thereafter gave birth to a prince amidst the songs of birds and the humming of bees. The king was very happy and named his son Siddhartha, which means realization of all aims. On one day, a respectful hermit sage Asita came down to the palace to see the little prince. He was excited, and a smile of joy appeared on his face. But almost as quickly, a tear dropped from his eye. He predicted that the prince would attain enlightenment, perfected in both wisdom and virtue someday, and became the teacher and master of men and devas. However, delight was quickly followed by sorrow, and 2 days later, Queen Maya passed away. Fortunately, under the loving care of Queen Maya's sister, Siddhartha gradually grew up. He was handsome and healthy. At the age of 8, he began his lessons in literature and the military arts, but his thoughts more naturally ran to other things. And one spring day, he went out of the castle with his father. He noticed a lizard eating ants with its tongue, and shortly afterwards, a snake approached, killed the lizard, and swallowed it. And just at that moment, a hawk suddenly descended from the sky, seized the snake, and ate it. Siddhartha was deeply affected by those scenes of tragedy. He sat down in the shade of a tree and thought about it, whispering to himself, "Do all living creatures kill each other?" One day, Siddhartha toured around the city in a splendid carriage. He saw a ragged old man limping on the road. Siddhartha contemplated deeply what he saw, and soon he became aware that there was no way to avoid getting old, whether he was rich, poor, powerful, or mean. Another day, Siddhartha went out on foot with plain clothes, and no one recognized that he was the prince. And on the way, he found a man lying on the earth mowing. His body was twisting, and his face was discolored. He asked his servant, Chandaka, what was happening. And Chandaka told him that the man was sick and would be dying soon. Siddhartha was frightened by knowing that everyone in the world would be sick and had to die someday. No one could escape this. Afterwards, Siddhartha was impressed by a wandering ascetic with serene and composed features. He determined that he will leave his home and take up the life of a wandering ascetic himself, to search for real happiness and to become free from all pain and suffering. At the age of 29, Siddhartha went to see his newborn son the last time, and he left the palace. Only Chandaka followed him. Until they arrived at the Anoma River, Siddhartha asked Chandaka to go back to the palace, and later told the king what had happened. Siddhartha then visited many respectful ascetics and learned from them. But he had not found any real answer to the problems of human suffering. Finally, he went to the forest of Uravipa and practiced severe austerity. He thought that if he increased his hardship, he would most certainly become enlightened. In the company of 5 other wandering ascetics, Siddhartha began to reduce his diet, until finally he was eating nothing at all. One day, while he was meditating, he fainted. Fortunately, a shepherdess just happened to pass by. She helped Siddhartha recover by feeding him her goat milk. And after that, Siddhartha realized that without a healthy body, he would never be able to attain enlightenment. But his 5 companions thought he had given up his practice, so they left him alone. Siddhartha sat down under a Bodhi tree. He vowed to himself that he would not move a bit until he had attained enlightenment. Siddhartha concentrated his will and aroused his mind to ward off the disturbance. And at that time, phantoms appeared to distract his mind, enticing him to linger on to the pleasures of the past. But Siddhartha resisted these temptations, and finally he completely dispersed all the illusory thoughts. His mind became calm and clear. He came to realize that the unceasing cycle of death and rebirth of all beings is solely a manifestation of one's karma. Some people could be born to a better life than the others, encountering all sorts of happiness because they have done good deeds. Some, on the other hand, could be born to a condition worse than the others, suffering very much because they have done bad deeds. Finally, he observed that the ultimate cause of the turning rounds of birth and death and the vast seed of worldly suffering is ignorance and the attachment to illusory pleasures. One can only escape from the cycle of death and rebirth by completely destructing and eliminating all lustful desires. At the age of 35, under the Bodhi tree by the bank of the Narayana River, Siddhartha attained complete enlightenment and became the Buddha. The Buddha's achievement is difficult and profound, but with great compassion and wisdom, he decided to propagate the Dhamma. He went to Marigadeva, where the 5 wandering ascetics who had accompanied him during his ascetic life were staying. At first, they ignored him, but after the Buddha talked to them, they found that the Buddha was comparably noble and serious, and they believed in him and became his first followers. From then, the Buddha began his teachings, and for 45 years, the Buddha went to different places, propagating the Dhamma, changed and affected many people. At the age of 80, the Buddha became ill, but he still journeyed on, until he reached the forest on the border of Kaniragara Castle. He lay down between 2 large solid trees. At there, he passed away, and entered the great nirvana in the last watch of the full moon day. The brilliant lamp was extinguished, but the lamp of the Buddha's teaching exists forever, and will carry thousands and thousands of people in our world across the stream of life and death to nirvana.
Sampai you.